We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered, and we certainly made no big announcement about it or a big deal about it, but this is a special episode, a big round number. This is episode number 900 of AV Rant. There it is. Woo, 900. Look at it go.
That's right.
Yes.
Fireworks.
Well, speaking of fireworks, I mean, here we are. If you're looking on the YouTube version, we had a nice number 900 banner that was sent in by our listener Ash, who has been providing artwork for this podcast, no charge. He's, you know what? He's been super busy for like multiple years. We weren't like gonna bother him about it at all. Out of the blue, he's just like, "Hey, 900's coming up," so he sent over that lovely banner.
I didn't even ask you about it because I was like, "There's no way he's got time to do this."
We were not going to bother him at all about it, but yeah, without us contacting him, he contacted us, sent us our lovely number 900 AV Rant banner, and more than that, Tom just mentioned there's going to be some fireworks. Absolutely fireworks! Woo! Come see the YouTube version. Our lower third has fireworks.
Are there really fireworks?
Yeah, there's fireworks around the 900 logo and our names. Oh. It's fantastic. So that is going to stay there for the duration of the episode. It is episode number 900. We're celebrating by doing a completely normal episode with absolutely nothing special about it besides the wonderful artwork from Ash. So there it is.
That's right. Ash, you are what makes this episode wonderful.
That is it.
That's right. It's all about
all
Ash.
The planning we did.
Yeah, zero. Zero planning. We did it all. We did it, Rob.
Congratulations.
Nailed another one.
I mean,
this is why we are the biggest podcast.
Oh, yes.
In the archived podcast files.
Yeah, the podcast archives. Nobody else has that in front of the name of the podcast. It's podcast archives before it's AV Rant. We're that fancy and amazing over here.
We're that fancy. They were afraid of our greatness, Rob.
Both of us much too afraid to press the update button over at Libsyn that will completely transition the entire Libsyn catalog of our saved episodes over to the new system that should take us out of the podcast archives, but who knows what it will do to the entire back catalog. So we're much too afraid to press that update button.
We need somebody to that's not afraid, because we are full of fear.
Yup. I'm petrified what's going to happen if we ever press that button.
So, okay. Update real quick. As of right now, as far as I know, nobody's coming in this house today.
Okay,
so
okay.
We will see. But, so the ongoing saga of the wall in my son's room, which we have been trying to get fixed, and so that we can fix the wall, so that we can replace the drywall, so we can put in the carpet, so that I can get my home theater back.
Wouldn't that be nice?
The wall is fixed.
Okay.
It no longer, whatever leakage was doing, it is no longer leaking.
Okay.
We had it fixed. I think last week somebody was fixing it, right?
Yeah, there was somebody over last Tuesday for sure. Yes.
Yeah. And then Thursday he said we could test it and see if it leaked. And
I see. Yes.
It did. It leaked on Thursday. So he came back Thursday and fixed it again.
Okay.
Or did some more fixing.
Yes.
And then said we could test it on Saturday. And we tested it on Saturday, and it did not leak.
Okay.
And then we tested it on Sunday, and it still did not leak.
Good.
And then it rained last night, and it wasn't leaking, but it has to kind of rain with like really strong wind.
Sure.
Which there is some strong wind out there, but I don't think it's blowing from the right direction. Doesn't matter. Doesn't leak. That's all we care about.
Okay.
So, according to my wife, there is a non-zero chance that we might have carpet in the house this week. It's not a great chance.
Right.
It's not a good chance, but there's a non-zero chance.
Okay.
But she thinks that definitely by next week we will have carpet in the house.
Fantastic.
And that will be a great relief for us who have been dealing with this for literally months.
Yeah.
Literally months. And I'm not mad about it. I'll be honest with you. There's so many people in this neighborhood who, who are... I see it on the Facebook page, which, by the way, is almost exclusively filled with people complaining about things. So it is very,
Well,
it's very rare when somebody says something positive,
Mhm.
but sometimes in the midst of their complaining about everything, literally everything.
Mhm.
Like, I don't know how people can spend their entire lives. Like, this is called AV Rant. The whole
It
idea
is.
that, that when I created this podcast in 2007 was that I was going to
Yup.
be angry and edgy. And over the years, I've been like, God, I just can't maintain that much anger and edginess for this many years. Apparently, people in this neighborhood have a bottomless well of
Sure.
anger
Right.
that they cannot seem to get past.
Okay,
Like,
I can believe it.
instead of becoming like, well, maybe I should just lighten up and deal with my own personal issues, and so that I'm not angry all the time. They're just like, no, anger, leaning in. So every once in a while, in the midst of one of their angry rants, they're all, oh yes, and I'm finally able to move back into my house.
Mhm.
Everybody sucks. So I don't understand how those two things go together, but that's what it is. And these people are just moving back in their house, so how can I complain about the fact that it's taken this long to get this one little wall fixed?
Plus, now that we've both been through repairs of this such before, we kind of have a little bit of our expectations have been adjusted. We know a little bit more what to expect and just how long these things do take. So yes, that is understandable.
Yes, the wall is definitely fixed. At least it's fixed enough for us to move forward with the repairs.
Until the next storm requires another repair, then
we are going to burn this house to the ground. just collect the insurance money. That's not how that works.
No, I don't think that would really work out, especially now that you've said it in a public way that
can be
downloaded and shown in a court of law if need be. Yeah.
Well, they'll never find it in the archive files anyway.
That's right.
Any difference.
Good luck.
Good luck finding this podcast. We're a hidden gem.
Yep.
Very hidden and only slightly gemmy.
So, I mean, the other fun thing about episode 900, I have freshly shorn my hair there, much to the dismay of one of our listeners who, for some reason, is overly invested in me growing my hair back out. I don't really know.
I don't think I've ever seen you with hair. Have I ever seen you with hair?
I mean, long ago, yeah. There was a time back in the day where I've never had long hair by any means. It's always been pretty close cut, but not necessarily, number one
Who's
shade
invested
down.
in your hair? Who would care?
There was somebody on YouTube who has commented more than once that I should let my hair grow back out.
People. Listen, this entire world needs therapy, as far as I'm concerned. Everybody needs to go and just like...
Perhaps the therapist most of all.
Just like...
But now you got...
Like, how could you possibly care about Rob's head?
You get
like, I've seen Rob's head, and I don't care. So right. I don't think that anybody else should either. The only person that needs to worry about Rob's head is Rob.
You got two nearly bald hosts going on here, and then as we've mentioned before, again on the back end of everything behind the scenes, there's the whole file naming thing. So I mean, this might be the final 100 episodes of AV Rant podcast.
I don't know. I never expected it to go this long.
That's right.
Are you guys kidding me?
It might be necessitated.
I was given a hard time about the fact that I had 3 digits. They're like, when you start your podcast, because this was way back in 2007, make sure you leave enough digits so that...
That's right.
It encompasses every possible episode you might record. Like don't just start with, episode 1, and then when you get to 10, it messes up the numbering. I was like, okay, well, I'll put 3 digits. Surely we will never get to 999 and then have to deal with that situation. Like, I think at 999, what we do is we press the button on Libsyn and see what happens.
There you go. That
start
seems
over
like a plan.
Start over at 1. Maybe that's what we'll do.
Yep.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Let's do that. Yes. So this is the plan. We have 99 episodes of this format.
Yep. Just
okay.
a little less than 2 years to go here.
Yes, that's right. So at episode 999, we are going, between now and the end of this run, we will take suggestions or comments or whatever. You can, I don't really care. We might ignore, believe me, you have no actual say in what decisions we make. But we're open to suggestions. Yes, we expect to be ignored. But if you have an opinion on how we should reformat this, you should wait until 985 buy.
Okay,
but,
even that's many weeks before the actual end, but yes, fair enough.
Yeah, we will consider at that point, because I think we just restart at 1.
Yeah.
We just go back to 1.
Could have a new
and
name.
Then just
whatever.
Might as well, right?
Who knows? In 2 years, maybe I'll be ready to call it an end and be packing it in. And Tom
we
will
might
have to
finally
find a
get
new
through all the
co-host.
questions.
There could be that.
Can we? At that point, I think we will all have agreed that the Apple Vision Pro is just Pokemon Go, but on your face. Can we go with that? They're like, we invented augmented reality. Did you though? Or did Google Glass do it like years ago and get lampooned for it? I mean, did you?
I mean, there are the severe detractors and the outright fanboys of the Apple Vision
Pro. Are you kidding me? Apple has fanboys?
Very
Stop,
much
Rob.
so. And
anyways, let's just finish this one thing.
Yes.
999. Yeah. Episode 1.
Okay.
Of season 2. Season 2, episode 1 may be the exact same format.
It could
be completely different, or may not exist. We don't know. Okay, we may
probably still in 720p because 2 years from now, I don't know if we'll have advanced enough for that.
Episode 900, baby, we made it. Who would have thought? I don't think that anybody. There's very few podcasts out there that have, especially episodes as long as ours tend to be, that have made it
obviously
this far.
The ones that are literally daily will get to 900 pretty darn quickly.
Yeah.
But for weekly podcasts, pretty rare.
I mean, come on. All right. So, anything else going on in your life that we need to talk about before we get to what you watched?
Not that I'm going to say publicly on the podcast and that. There is stuff going on in the background. I am a little distracted. I haven't even let Tom know about it, but yeah, me too.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm still not
I
completely
don't understand
better.
this one. Like, I was so convinced yesterday that I had COVID, that's what has happened because my energy levels are in the toilet.
Yeah.
Like, I had stopped cycling because I'm like, I just can't get out there. I went out there on Saturday. I did 42 miles, which I do. Yep. That's not even that much for me.
Okay.
Like, I do more than that. Sure. Well, yeah, it's a lot for a lot of people. But then again, I also climb a lot harder than you would climb too. So it doesn't make any difference. But it's just what you're used to. But I was wrecked. I was wrecked on Saturday. I'm like, I was a disaster for the rest of the day. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't. And I usually go on the faster ride, one of the faster rides. And there was a ride I would have really gone on. It's like a 24 mile an hour ish ride, 22 to 24 that I would have done that day. If I had been feeling better, but I went on the 20s, which for me is like a casual ride. And that's not a flex. That's just like in the group that I ride in, the 20 mile an hour ride is the biggest ride because it's the one that most people can do. So, and I went on that ride and I still came back wrecked. So I was like, man, and then my son came home from school yesterday, which was Monday. So that was Saturday. Monday, my son came home from school. He's like, oh, my throat hurts. I don't feel good. I'm like, uh-oh. Yep. Maybe I did have COVID. Maybe that's what it was. So we both took a COVID test.
Yes.
Yesterday, and it's negative, both of us. But I just can't. Like, my ear's still plugged. I got like antibiotics from the doctor. I got like some spray from my nose and a steroid.
I don't think it's bacterial. This thing that's going around.
Whatever it is,
a
man.
virus, and I'm pretty sure it's a flu. It's a flu virus that's going around. I mean, I certainly got my influenza vaccine along with my COVID vaccine. So did Tom. But I think there is a flu bug out there this year that has bypassed that influenza vaccine that we all took, and it's rattling around. Or
I just can't get rid of this thing, and it's driving me absolutely
this is
bonkers.
a new strain of COVID that the tests don't detect. Who knows?
Maybe
it's something along those lines. Yeah. So anyway.
Bill Gates.
That's going on there.
Stop releasing COVID.
Right. I guess I should just go back. I started it on an Apple Vision Pro thought, and just to finish that thought, in case anybody listening was interested, there are the people definitely defending it, because of course there is quite a bit of dismissal of the Apple Vision Pro. That seems to be the majority of the opinions out there. But there are the people who are
$3,500 for That's stupid.
Yes.
You gotta be kidding me.
There are the people who are vehemently defending it. But what I will say is I think everybody, even the most ardent fans agree this is clearly not the final form that Apple has in mind. This is more or less a public hardware beta test. This is the first go of it.
They saw the poster for Ready Player One and said, hey, that's a good idea. We should make that.
Right. So I think there is a big difference between completely dismissing and poo-pooing the idea of what Apple Vision Pro is attempting to begin versus the actual hardware you can pay $3,500 for. And everybody, even its biggest fans, agree this is the first go of it. This is the beta version of it. This is clearly not the final form.
They release Google Glass and call it Apple Glass, and Apple people unironically say they've invented something new again. Like, Apple has been an innovator. There's no doubt about that, right? But in the last 10 years, it's just like, hey, Samsung did this, we should do it. And then they do it, and like, oh, Face Unlock is brand new. No one's done this before. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Just wait until there's a folding screen iPhone. No one's ever done it before. It'll be the first.
All right, Rob, we could bag on Apple all day. And honestly, I don't care. Like, if you love Apple, I think that's great. You don't have to justify to me why you love Apple. Like, you can love it without trying to convince me that they are doing something better or new or best. I mean, I don't really care. Mm-hmm. But when somebody says, oh, Apple's doing this new thing that nobody's ever done before, and that's why Apple's great, I'm like, well, someone hasn't done it before, and they've been doing it for a long time. Just like Apple. Just be okay with that. Just be okay with the fact that you like Apple. You don't have to justify to me why you overspent for something that you could get for less somewhere else.
I have also seen the comments about how, since you can get now from Apple movies and streaming via Disney Plus, movies that are showing only in the Apple Vision Pro headset in 3D with high dynamic range, including Dolby Vision. Dolby Vision released a new profile that now works with 3D, but 3D, Dolby Vision, high dynamic range, and high frame rate, like for the Avatar movies, for example, 48 frames per second, being, I think, doubled up to 96 inside of the headset. So all of those things, which we have not been able to have in any form at home before, because 3D Blu-rays do not have high dynamic range. So we haven't been able to get all those things. And there are the people who are like, now that we have all of these technologies combined, this is what is going to allow 3D to really catch on. And I'm like, it's a $3,500 headset. And what killed 3D at home, I am putting my flag in the ground about stating what killed 3D at home. It wasn't that zero people had interest in it. Some people had interest. Obviously not everybody, but some people had interest in it. It isn't that like the technology was like if it didn't have high dynamic range, that was what was going to hold it back. What held back 3D at home was incompatible glasses. I am putting my flag in the ground. It was the fact that you couldn't just have one pair of 3D glasses or have a bunch of cheap as chips 3D glasses lying around your house in case guests came over that would work with any display that you bought in the past, present, or future. The problem of like basically having to get one-for-one glasses with the particular model, not even brand, because some brands of TVs had different models of 3D glasses depending on the exact model of TV that you bought. That, I think, killed 3D at home more than anything. And the notion that you were going to exclusively release high dynamic range, high frame rate 3D movies on a $3,500 headset is somehow going to cause a resurgence in 3D movies. Forget it. That is the craziest of all crazy ideas. So I'm sorry. That's coming from me, one of the last remaining 3D fans in the whole entire world.
If Rob says the 3D won't work, it ain't going to work.
Holding on to a Sony Z9D television just so I can have a 4K high dynamic range 3D capable TV with its stupid active shutter glasses that only work with other active shutter glasses TVs. I went ahead and got that. That's coming from me. Apple Vision Pro is not the resurgence of 3D movies. Okay, now we can start the podcast.
What did you watch, Rob?
Oh, okay, we're going to that first. I forgot. Sometimes I thought we did who we are and what this podcast is about. But I think that's after what we watched. Okay, yes. I watched The Whale. I've been meaning to watch this movie for a fair amount of time. Brendan Fraser as very much the lead in this movie, in a tremendous prosthetic suit to make him appear to be, 550, 600 pounds, somewhere in that range. won an Academy Award for his performance, male lead, and it is an absolutely tremendous performance that he gives. What is most noticeable to me in this performance was that here you have this man very understandably full of self-loathing, physically would be difficult to be around, and yet in the course of this movie you have multiple characters who repeatedly come to visit him and either try to talk to him or persuade him, or he has called one of them over and she doesn't really want to be there, but she comes back, and it's like, okay, there needs to be a believable reason why these people keep coming back. Not just that we made a movie about this man, and so there are going to be other people for him to interact with. For this to really come across as truthful and believable, there needs to be something there where you're like, here's why people keep coming back. And Brendan Fraser absolutely nails that. You see it in his eyes, in his face, in his vocal performance. There's something there that you want to be around this guy. For whatever reason, you want to either try to help him or to hear what he has to say. He has that, not just in the obvious dialogue that is there being delivered. It's in that subtle performance. It's in the subtext where you're like, yeah, there is something in his eyes. There is something behind there that would make me want to come back day after day as well. And to really nail that is not the simplest of things. That isn't all in the script. That is in the unspoken parts of the performance. And I think he absolutely deserved the Academy Award for the performance that he gave. Hong Chow as the primary, supporting character in her performance absolutely got me. There's not a ton of movies where a literal tear or two comes out of my eyes. Quite often I'll well up a bit, but to actually have tears come out of my face, she got me. She got that to happen. And so, I mean, this is directed by Darren Aronofsky. There's sometimes the jokes, as subtle as a Darren Aronofsky movie, subtlety is not what he's going after in any of the movies that he makes. And again, this is, if you want to say emotionally manipulative, that's not an unfair criticism, but it works. It just works. I mean, is it at some points a bit maudlin? Is it at some points right in your face and not the least bit subtle? Yup. Yeah, I can see where there's those sometimes criticisms are leveled and not unfounded, but much like Requiem for a Dream, which also had zero subtlety to it.
Right.
If you make it well enough, it still works. I don't know too many people who watched Requiem for a Dream and said, that it wasn't an amazing movie, that they didn't pull it off. So, are things heightened? Absolutely. Is the dialogue sometimes very on the nose? Does it even have a scene or two where, because this is a movie and because we are being dropped into the middle of these people's lives, they do have dialogue that is a bit unrealistic, as in, someone saying, when you walked out on Mom and Me 8 years ago, would somebody really say that in real life at that very moment? Probably not. That is very much there as exposition for us, the audience, to understand what happened in these people's lives. So, I'm not going to say this is like 100% authentic dialogue, but when it's performed at this level, when the editing and the directing is this strong, it all came together. It absolutely worked. It got tears to come out of my face for real, and I give it a hearty thumbs up, and I think all the praise for it was well deserved. So, thumbs up from me from The Whale. I did want to mention, watching it. It was available to stream on Amazon Prime Video. This is after the ads have now been introduced. So what I got in terms of ads, because I have not paid the extra $3 a month, is a pre-roll ad that went for 60 seconds. Don't mind that. That's fine. Show me 60 seconds of ads before the movies begin. I'm not going to worry too much. And I had one ad break. It was 30 seconds long, one ad break in the entire duration of the little over 2-hour movie. So I'm not going to say that the amount of ad breaks or the length of that ad break was egregious or completely unacceptable. But this ad break came in right in the middle of a sentence. which is horrible.
So it's AI generated.
Well, I mean, I think it was just timed. I think it was just straight up timed. Absolutely nothing more to it than at this moment in time, we're going to show you an ad break. So there was zero care about inserting it into a scene break where a television version of it might have inserted a commercial break because it was a natural break in the movie, in the flow of the movie. Right mid-sentence, here came 30 seconds of ads. A good 6 to 7 decibels louder than the movie itself, because there are no rules about that in streaming like there are in broadcast television. So not a great experience in terms of that ad break. At least it was only one and it was only 30 seconds long, but that is pretty awful, especially in a movie like this that hinges entirely on you buying into the monologuing and dialoguing performances of the characters, to just have that inserted out of the blue as a shock and scream at you for 30 seconds with an overly loud ad. Not a fantastic experience there. So that was The Whale. Big thumbs up. Big thumbs down to ads on Amazon Prime Video. I don't know if I'm willing to pay them $3 just because they annoyed me into doing it. And then the other thing is I have started season 3 of Evil on Paramount Plus. I've only watched 2 episodes of that, so don't know everything that's going on there. But I will say, by season 3, they're just like, okay, season 1 was being broadcast on CBS television, so it had to be CBS television levels of, no profanity, and as far as violence and nudity and anything like that goes, it was broadcast TV. Season 2, they basically went to PG-13 levels. You might have 1 or 2 swear words in an episode. You might have a fleeting glimpse of some, tiny little bit of, I guess you would call it nudity, but, like really fleeting, but PG-13 levels. Season 3, they're like, nope, we're TVMA, we're R-rated, people are gonna swear up a storm, and we're gonna have sexual content, and we're just going for it because we're streaming only now, and there doesn't seem to be any idea that they might turn back and keep it at something that could be easily edited out to go back on broadcast TV. So kind of funny there. It does change the tone of the show a little bit. It's a little bit weird to have the characters that you've watched for 2 seasons suddenly swearing this much. It feels different.
Right.
So I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to love season 3, but so far so good in an overall sense. And then they did create an entire proper full-length title sequence, because now the running times don't matter, and the running times are all over the place from episode to episode because it's streaming only. And I love that they put in a full title sequence, because I tend to like title sequences, and this is a good one. So there we go. Evil season 3, also a thumbs up, but a noticeable change from seasons 1 and 2.
I just looked at Aronofsky's history.
Filmography?
Yeah, I think the only ones I've seen are Requiem for a Dream and Pi.
Yes.
Are the only ones I've seen. I like Pi. I like Requiem for a Dream, too. It's a little bit harder to watch. Excuse me. So, I obviously still not watching a whole lot here. Sure. But I did watch the first 2 episodes of Obliterated on Netflix. I
hadn't even heard of this, so I'm curious.
So the conceit of the show is that this is a high performing counterterrorism team. Okay. And they stop a suitcase nuke from being sold and then used in Las Vegas. Mm. And they get the guy, they get the nuke, they disarm the bomb. It's it's a big thing. And then afterwards, the super, high performing leader lady of the team is even told by her superior to, you're on vacation, you're not allowed, just take some time off for yourself. And the rest of the team has already decided that they're going to go party. They're like, nobody knows what we did. No one will ever know because of, national security and all that. So we're going to throw this crazy party. And so she shows up for the party, whatever. Obliterated, essentially, is that they start to party. They go through this part, they get to the middle of the night, and then they get a call from their superior. Hey, that was a fake nuke. The real one's still out there. Right. You guys need to go find it, essentially. But they're all still drunk and on drugs and a bunch of other stuff. Okay. So, to me, it's billed as sort of an action comedy. It's written as if, it's definitely written in such a way as to indicate that it was written before the writer's strike, because it sucks. The writing is as trite and stupid as you think it might be. Like, there is not an original character in the show. Like, they're all caricatures of exactly.
Yes,
there's the MIT girl who's nerdy and has a crush on the buff, semi, co-leader or the immediate, whatever guy it is, and it's just not very good.
Okay.
But I watched the first 2 episodes because whatever.
Give it a shot.
Gave it a shot. I think there's 8 episodes. I don't think I'm going to make it through all 8 episodes because it is not very good. There's a lot of gratuitous nudity in it. A bit of profanity, but that doesn't bother me so much. But I did appreciate, from the standpoint of inclusion, that the nudity was inclusive. We'll say that, okay? So if you're like, it sucks that there's only, when they have nudity, it's only women. You don't have to worry about that in this show. I think there's more men.
Definitely changing these days.
It is.
Changing around a whole bunch.
So, but the show itself the jokes just aren't even that good. They're like, you can see them coming a mile away, and you're like, oh, God. But it's fine, I guess, but
with all that there is to watch out there, why
would you? Why would you? And I don't, again, I never blame any one person for ruining anything. Even when you watch like Dangerous Liaisons, like that seminal movie with Glenn Close and John Malkovich and Uma Thurman and all these phenomenal actors, and then there's Keanu Reeves, who still sounds like a surfer in the middle of it, right? You're just like, you don't look like, I'm like, I don't blame you, Keanu. Somebody cast you. Somebody thought that you were going to nail this part, and you did not. And it's fine. You're trying your best, and I appreciate you for doing that. But, I never blame any one person, and I don't think anybody in this is doing a necessarily bad job. I can't believe that they're not afterwards going, seriously, is that the line? Is that really the line?
That's
is
not
that
an
what I'm supposed
actor's
to
job.
say?
That is not an actor's job.
So anyways, literally brainless. Like, you really have to not pay attention to this to find this to be good. It is not good. But it's also not anything you have to think about. There's not going to be any surprises. You know what's coming. You know the jokes that are coming. There's, like, no getting around it.
Sadly, the quintessential Netflix TV show.
Yes.
Only
the thing
on
that
Netflix.
really gets me is these guys and gals do an insane amount of drugs during this thing. Like you should not be able to
You would think
function.
anyone working toward, like, on the law enforcement side of things, maybe a little unexpected.
They try to explain whether, like, how easy it is to get clean pee these days or whatever. I'm like, okay, but even so, like, how are you, like, and it's like anything, like most TV shows or whatever, like, it only affects them when it's good for the story. It's John Woo and reloading guns. Like, you only reload a gun in a John Woo movie when it looks cool. Like, you can
it was scripted.
700 bullets between then from your 9mm. But same thing with the drugs. It's like they should not be operating at all. I will say that the lady who plays, and I don't know any of the people's names. The lady who plays, like, the big boss, who's supposed to be, who really only drank a lot, so she's supposed to be drunk. Everybody else is on, like, ecstasy and a bunch of other stuff. But she maintains her slurring very well throughout the first 2 episodes.
Okay.
Like, I'm like, she committed to it, and she's like not going to, like, and it keeps popping up every once in a while. You're like, oh yeah, she's still gone drunk, and everybody else is like, I don't know, I'm just acting. Whatever. This is not that serious of a show. So, but it's called Obliterated on Netflix.
It sure is.
I don't know if I'm selling it for you, but
sounds like time can be better spent elsewhere.
I'm sure, but they were pushing it pretty hard, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. It sounds interesting. It sounds like it could be fun. It is a show on Netflix.
It exists.
It exists.
I guess just before we leave what we watched, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl.
All right. Taylor Swift's team.
Sure, yeah, that's right. All the conspiracy theories, they did in fact win. Hope you put the gigantic bets on the Kansas City Chiefs, although if there was a spread involved in that bet, you almost certainly did not make that part of it. But if you just went for the straight up who wins, regardless of what went on, at least it was an entertaining game. It was very much back and forth. There was a lot of strategy. There was actually some foot involved in football because it was pretty much all field goals. So, hey, it wasn't like a weird lopsided game or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, we went to my parents' house and had dinner. Watched the first half. We came home. Our next door neighbor, as if anybody's listened to this podcast for years, knows that my next door neighbor has huge parties during Super Bowl and New Year's and I don't know, maybe some other times. I don't remember. Anyway, so he had a huge party over there, and we are always invited. And I did not go, but my wife and my son went until it went to overtime, and then they came home.
Oh, it's a strange time to leave.
Well, they were just, he's got to go to school the next day, and she's got to go to work. So yeah,
overtime in football was never that long. So
yes, but it's late.
Okay.
It's late here on the East Coast.
Yeah, you guys are East Coast. That's true.
So on the East Coast, like the game didn't start till 6:30 p.m. Yeah. So it was already late, and they both suffered the next day for being tired and cranky. But I couldn't care less about any of that. The thing I told my son, I was like, listen, I don't care if you talk to me during the game. Do not talk to me during the commercials. I'm here for the commercials. I'm not here for the game.
We do not get on our broadcast networks in Canada that also like override the U.S. Station when we tune in there. We get the Canadian feed. So yeah, there was actually a joke about that over at Bell Media. They had a couple of rather famous Canadian comedians who were like reenacting the U.S. commercials. So you could
tell you what, the Nickelodeon broadcast looked very good. I wish that I had been watching that instead of the regular broadcast because I understand football, but and I think my wife understands it probably about as well as I do. But I would have appreciated some of this Dora the Explorer explaining some of the calls to me.
I thought the commentary was pretty good.
Yeah. All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions to get your questions answered for the next 99 episodes.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen after that?
You got 2 years to figure it out.
You can contact us at question@avrant.com. Go to the website, avrant.com. Find our episodes, our show notes, and our Flickr album so you can follow along with the images that we will be referring to which we will be referring.
Sure.
You can find us on facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant, where you can see our explosions.
That's right. All the fireworks. Not animated, just a still image.
I was going to say, are they animated? I kind of got the impression they might be animated. All right. Contact Rob directly, rob@avrant.com. His social media is @FirstReflect.
Oh, yeah, and I'm on Blue Sky now. I claimed my handle over there. I've had pretty much no...
Blue Sky?
That's
I don't care.
The guy who created Twitter, he spun off and made Blue Sky instead, and it was invitation only for quite a while, but now they've opened it up. You don't need an invitation to join Blue Sky anymore. So I'm like, well, I've got to claim my handle there too, because one of these days, one of these services is going to become the new one service. But anyway, if I'm around, I'm First Reflect.
All right, I'm Tom at AVRant.com.
Yes.
I've got listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to AVRant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and it'll take you to a PayPal donation site. We want to thank Raph and Tyler for doing that this week. Thank you very much, Raph, and thank you, Tyler.
Yes, indeed. Raph and Tyler, thank you for your PayPal donations. We appreciate your financial support.
Yeah, if you want to support us monthly, you can do that by patreon.com/AVRantPodcast. Become a monthly contributor. They'll take some amount of money from you and give most of it to us, a minimum of $1. So we have 130 patrons currently, down one from last episode. Right. So I don't know.
Dwindling away over the next 100 episodes. By $9.99, we'll be down to 99.
That's right. So we want to thank our 130 patrons, including Daniel. Thank you very much.
That's right. One more time, that is patreon.com/AVRantPodcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So big thanks to our 130 patrons over there. Daniel, thank you for being one of them.
And of course, we already thanked Ash, but we'll thank him again here.
Well deserved.
For our episode 900 artwork. Thank you, Ash.
For sure. Thank you very much, Ash. Without us requesting it at all, did it of his own volition. Amazing support over all these many, many, many years that he's been doing this. So thank you very much, Ash, for supplying that artwork gratis.
And if you can't support us financially, just do something and let us know what it is. So Terry did this by going to, he's a longtime listener. He gave us a shout out to SVS when he picked up his PP1000 Pro sub. He also sent a USA movie code to me to test out to see whether or not it works. I haven't done that yet because I've been sick and crummy. So I will do it soon, though. Thank you very much, Terry.
Thank you, Terry, for all that support.
Aaron made it out to a couple of flea markets this week. That means more Canadian-only movie codes for Rob to test out. So thank you, Aaron.
That is right. Thank you very much, Aaron. I didn't get around to testing those latest ones just yet, so we'll see which of them work and which of them don't, and which of them go to iTunes, and which of them go to Google Play, and which of them go to the Cineplex store, because it's a crapshoot over here in Canada.
Yeah, who knows?
That's why we got to test. Thank you.
And we got some notes of gratitude from for keeping the podcast going through from Terry, Daniel, Ryan, Raph, and Aaron. Thank you very much to all of you.
Yep, I'll say the names one more time. Terry, Daniel, Ryan, Raph, and Aaron, thank you very much for your notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going and your notes of encouragement. They're definitely appreciated. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
Okay, in the news, Marantz has released a new top-end AV receiver model, the Cinema 30. I feel like the numbers go down.
They do go down. The smaller the number, the higher in the lineup, and the higher the price, and the bigger the features.
I don't like that.
It's a little bit off. I mean, it's not completely incomprehensible.
I understand that they're trying to be different.
Yes.
But I don't like it.
But yeah, the AV10 Pre-Pro is at the top, and now their top of the line receiver is the Cinema 30, and then the Cinema 40 is one step below that, and so on and so forth. 50 and 60 and 70S.
It's priced at $4,500, and its MSRP is $1,000 more than the identically featured Denon X6800H, and we really do mean identically featured, since the Cinema 30 does not have a set of 7.1 analog inputs on the back, which was like the one thing.
Little bit strange from Marantz.
that Marantz was kind of known for. I don't understand that. So the Cinema 30, just like the X6800H, has 11 amplifiers built in, rated 140 watts per channel, 2 channels driven, but can process up to 13 speakers if you add at least 2 channels of external amplification. 4 subwoofer outputs, or pre-outs, let you set individual distance and trim levels, or set aside sub-out 4 as a dedicated tactile transducer output, which we like, but not willing to spend an extra $1,000 just to have the Marantz logo on the front of the thing.
You also don't have to. The Denon does that too for $1,000 less.
And while Odyssey Multi-Q XC32 is included, Direct Live Room Correction and Direct Live Bass Control remain optional paid add-ons, which we've talked about on this podcast a number of times before.
So the price difference is not going to that.
Why not?
That would be lovely. You know, even though to add it to the Denon is $800.
Yeah.
And would still cost a bit less. If they were just like the Marantz at $1,000 more, comes with the full suite of Dirac already included, I'd be like, okay, I can definitely see my way to the $1,000 price difference there just for the different aesthetics that you've got with the Marantz.
So the built-in amps are Class A/B, and all 7 of its HDMI inputs are 40 gigabits per second HDMI 2.1. The only things differentiating the Marantz Cinema 30 and the Denon X6800H are Marantz's trademark HDAM pre-amplifier circuits, not worth $1,000, and the aesthetics of the front panel and chassis, which I like, but at the same time, not worth $1,000. Yeah. The Cinema 30 is also available in both black and silver. So if you really, really have to have a silver AV receiver, this is $1,000. I'm pretty sure you can get the other one refinished for less than that.
Could be, but in any case, that has rounded out Marantz's lineup. They do not have an AV receiver equivalent to the flagship A1H model in Denon's lineup, because Marantz's equivalent to that is the dedicated Pre-Pro, the AV10, and the matching Amp 10, which is actually a 16-channel amplifier, so there's one spare left over because it processes 15 speakers, but they paired it up with a 16-channel amplifier in that Amp 10 from Marantz. Each of those going for $7,000, so it's $14,000 to get the Pre-Pro and matching amp from Marantz, whereas it's $6,500 to get the A1H, still a very expensive AV receiver, but less than half the price of the dedicated Pre-Pro and matching amp version from Marantz. So those are the top flagships, but the 6800H is the next rung down in Denon's lineup, matching now with the Cinema 30 from Marantz. So there it is.
So Amazon Prime Video, which we've already talked about a little bit, pulled a fast one on all of us. We were warned that they would start inserting ad breaks, which Rob experienced and reported on, into movies and TV shows. We were given notice that we could pay an additional $3 a month on top of our existing Amazon Prime subscriptions to keep Prime Video ad-free. But we were not warned that we would have to pay that extra $3 a month to keep Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. So there's even more reason to spend the $3. Amazon has now confirmed to Forbes that they are deliberately limiting Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos streaming to the higher priced ad-free tier of Prime Video only. The basic tier that comes with every Amazon Prime subscription will stream in 4K resolution with HDR 10, 10 Plus, and 5.1 audio available. I will tell you that, as Rob was saying about this, and this kind of sort of specifically in the middle of a sentence ad break.
Right. Yeah.
So we have started watching using the Roku,
some kind of Roku.
Premiere Plus, I think is the one we have. Okay, the ad breaks on YouTube are insanely longer than it gets if you're on the actual streaming thing, and it is impossible that they're not purposely placed in a way to piss you off. It's like, it's not like we have been watching, because my kids, all of them have pole vaulted at some point. Like, all of them are either pole vaulting currently or have pole vaulted in the past. So we watch like track and field events just so that we have something to talk over the top of as we're discussing our days, and we want to be able to watch something as we're sitting in here.
Sure.
And the amount of times that the ad break happens right as they are reaching the vault, and you're not sure if they have made it or not.
Yeah.
It's not possible that it's not on purpose.
Wow.
Like there's got to be some AI in there that's there just to piss you off so that you'll pay the extra for it. I actually looked into it because I was like, we watch enough YouTube, her and I, that it makes sense for us to pay a little bit extra, but it's not a little bit extra. It's like $30 a month or something like that
for
to
the
get
family plan or whatever. Yeah, YouTube Premium is not inexpensive. It is pricey.
It is, yeah. So I was like, I'm not paying that. I mean, if it had been like $7 or $3, or something like that, I would have considered, just to get rid of the ads, I would have considered it. But $30, you lost your dang minds. So I do not believe that these ad breaks that they're putting in here, that there's not some AI algorithm that's like, what is the most emotionally, I don't. Maybe it was dead center in the middle of it, and it worked out that way for you. But I think that they like, where could we piss people off the most so they'll pay for that?
Yeah, I mean, to me, for the Amazon Prime Video one, the simplest explanation is probably the most likely, and since there was literally one ad break, the idea that it was just a timestamp as to when it was going to happen makes the most sense to me. That's not overly complicated. But yeah, YouTube is definitely I mean, they are working at making you see those ads because, if you are just on a computer web browser and you're using some sort of browser extension to still circumvent a lot of the ads on YouTube, since they're being very aggressive about notifying you that if you use an outright ad blocker on your browser, you get to watch 3 YouTube videos and then they're cutting you off. But there are still browser extensions that circumvent a lot of the, at least, inline ads and that. But like, I noticed that the friendly one that I've been using on my web browser, like, it would cut out a lot of the ads that just show up as like sponsored things that show up in, like, when you're looking at the grid of videos. The sponsored ones, it's like, well, YouTube got around the ad blocker for that, and those sponsored ones have shown back up. And then it's like, it used to like skip right past the skippable videos, but now it's like you don't actually watch the video, the ad playing, but you still have to hit the skip button to actually get past it. Like, it's a cat and mouse back and forth, and YouTube wants you to see those ads. But we weren't even talking about YouTube. We were talking about Amazon Prime Video.
That's true.
The ads are there, and the news is, if you want Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos, much like many of the other streaming providers, unfortunately, that is now locked behind the premium tier. You gotta pay extra to get your Dolby Vision and Atmos. You can at least still see 4K and HDR, just not the Dolby Vision version, the HDR10 version, or HDR10 Plus if your display supports that. So that's kind of nice, but losing the Atmos, that's not fun. Down to 5.1 we go.
So we previously mentioned that Plex would start offering their own movie and TV show rentals and purchases from their own online Plex movie and TV show store. Well, a small subset of that has now launched, and it comes with a ton of limitations. For the moment, Only movie rentals are available directly from the Plex store, and only in the USA, no other countries, no TV shows yet, and no purchases. Prices for rentals range from $3.99 for catalog titles up to $20.99 for recent released movies. And
that is purely
rentals.
a rental. That is purely a rental. Yeah, the rules on that are similar to everywhere else. Once you have clicked the button to agree to rent it, if you start watching the movie, you have 48 hours.
Yeah.
So they're actually a little bit more generous than some. Many are 24 hours only. They are 48 hours on Plex to complete watching the movie, or you can watch it as many times as you want within those 48 hours. But once 48 hours has elapsed, that's it. And then I think they give you, like, you hit the rental button. I think they said it's 30 days to start watching it.
Right.
And then, of course, once you've started watching it, the 48-hour clock kicks in. So they're fairly generous on the amount of times given on those rentals.
So nothing from Disney is available yet, so that definitely limits the library. And then most glaring for all home theater fans, the maximum streaming quality at the moment is 1080p, no HDR, and 5.1 audio at best, with many titles only available in 2-channel stereo. So welcome to Netflix like a million years ago. So this is a very limited launch, but clearly not what Plex has envisioned as its final form. Think it more of a small test run at this point. Yeah, I'm going to pay $20.99 for a test run.
Yeah, $21 to rent a movie in 1080p with, at best, 5.1 audio. I'm like, why would that be your choice? Why would you opt for that one over all the other services out there? That doesn't make a lick of sense. But yeah, this is more proof of concept than it is what they're actually going to be doing long term. But there it is. They said it would happen in February. It kind of did.
Right. So last week, Fox Sports, which is not owned by Disney, ESPN, which is owned by Disney, and Warner Brothers Discovery announced that they are joining forces to offer a new combined sports streaming service that will combine live streaming feeds of their existing cable TV channels, as well as the existing streaming-only sports streams from the likes of ESPN Plus and Hulu. No price or name was announced yet, but they intend to launch the service this fall. There will be an independent management team dedicated to the service, but the three media companies will jointly own it, and each will have equal board representation. We're certain they'll get along just fine, and it won't be just like Discovery just saying, let's just not stream that one anymore, and then use it as a tax write-off.
Sure. And as far as, which event gets promoted on the splash page as soon as you open the app, I'm sure there will be no contention between these three media conglomerates as to what gets promoted in front, which one has the biggest ad load or whatever is going on there. I don't see this working out all that well. When have Disney and Warner Brothers ever been able to work coherently together for any length of time? I don't know, but it's sort of, to my mind, it shows the sort of level of desperation that they're getting to, because they're like, sports is the last thing that is keeping people's TV cable subscriptions. It is the last reason that people are still willing to pay for cable. They're seeing the writing on the wall. We're trying to transition to streaming, but nobody's making any money in streaming. I mean, Netflix is kind of a little bit, because at least they have the gigantic audience and it's predictable. At least they can predict what their revenue is going to be. Everybody else, though, is like, nobody's making money on streaming. Nobody's profiting at all. Most of them are showing hundreds of millions or billion-dollar plus losses year over year on the streaming platforms. They're like, okay, we got to get this sports over there, but if we're going to do the stupid thing of siloing individual, not just leagues, like individual games, right? You want to watch every NFL game, you got to subscribe to like 15 different services at this point. It's getting completely ridiculous. So they're like, okay, let's just combine ourselves on the streaming side of things. It's still not everybody, right? It's Fox Sports, it's ESPN, and it's Warner Brothers Discovery. That's not everybody. Paramount Plus has exclusives. Amazon has exclusives. Like, it's definitely still not everybody, but to me, it's a sign of desperation. The price is almost certainly going to be way higher than you're thinking a streaming service is going to be. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of hope for this thing being awesome.
I'll be honest. I'm not a huge... I talk about watching sports quite a bit, but I usually talk about it as being on in the background, and I don't care where it comes from. Right. And I actually don't care about the sport. The other day we watched like the 71 kilogram women's clean and jerk.
Sure. Yeah.
Powerlifting. I have no idea what's going on, but it's something to be playing in the background. But I do have people who very much care about watching cycling. in my life and on my Facebook feed, and they are complaining incessantly about the fact that you can't just sign up for a service. There used to be GCN Plus, which was GCN is Global Cycling Network. It's a YouTube, I think a British YouTube channel, and they had their own streaming service, which covered a lot of the cycling events, the big ones at least, that you could stream from. But now they're gone. The channel's still around, but the GCN Plus service is no longer there. So they're saying that there's like 3 different services that you need to get in order to get all the big ones, which I think was like Flow Bikes, which is, I thought that was just a YouTube channel, but maybe they have something else. Discovery, Peacock. Peacock?
Okay. Peacock. Yeah, Peacock is NBC. And
then ESPN to get most of the stuff, but even that doesn't really get you everything, I don't think. So I agree. Sports is, people are want to be able to follow sports. Mm-hmm. Guys in particular, I think, need sports because that's how they connect with other guys. They have a hard time, doing anything together. Like just girls call each other up, and I'm being very
generalizing, yes.
Generalizing here. Women, my wife will call up her friends and they will all go and meet someplace and talk.
Right.
That is a thing that they will do, whether that's book club or for drinks or exercise or whatever. They don't care. They'll figure out something that they could do together but guys don't tend to do that as much. They tend to say, let's go watch a sport game together or a sporting event together, and that's how they connect. So sports are still very important to at least in the United States for, I think, male culture. So getting, having a place where you can get a lot of it without having to subscribe to a bunch of different services. That was the one friend, right, who always had the full package, whatever that was, so that you could get every game. Yep. And now it's hard to do that. Sony is once again drawing the ire of customers who bought, quote unquote, digital-only movies and shows from one of their online services. Sony offered Funimation as a streaming video service primarily dedicated to anime. Then in 2021, they purchased Crunchyroll, another anime-focused streaming video service. Ever since then, it was expected that Funimation and Crunchyroll would eventually be merged together. And now that time has come, with April 2nd announced as the date when Funimation will go away. And anyone with a Funimation account will now be transitioned over to having a Crunchyroll account. But, and this is from the announcement, please note that Crunchyroll does not currently support Funimation digital copies, which means that access to previously available digital copies will not be supported. However, we are continuously working to enhance our content offerings and provide you with an exceptional anime streaming service or streaming experience. We appreciate your understanding and encourage you to explore the extensive anime library available on Crunchyroll. I don't think those words mean what they think they mean. I'll be honest with you. I don't think that they understood what they said. Anytime that feels like it was translated from another language. I'm going to be honest with you.
You have a digital library and now you
now
don't.
You don't. Yes. Whoops.
Pretty. Yeah. Thanks for your understanding. Go check out the alternative.
Which is to buy it again? I'm like, whatever. So Funimation used to offer a purchase option, and in particular, physical Funimation releases on DVD and Blu-ray used to come with a code to permanently add those titles to your online Funimation streaming library. Now that library is going away. And again, there are no refunds since the terms of service always said that your Funimation digital copies might become inaccessible at any time.
Yeah.
I just don't know what to tell people anymore. I mean, I don't know what to tell you anymore about this whole digital copy thing. I have never purchased a digital copy. I've rented maybe twice, maybe 3 times in my life, from I think Amazon mostly, but I may have done it from other places. I don't really remember. And the idea was always it just to buy something digitally never made any sense to me.
Right.
I'm of an older generation, so I'm sure younger, Gen Zers or Xers or I'm X, so Gen Z or whatever the new generation is. Millennials might be
slightly younger than you.
Yeah, might be much. More of the mindset that a digital copy is just as good as a regular copy. But to open up a video game when you would go and get the video game and you would open up the box and there was no disc in there was just like a code.
Yep.
I was just like, I just got ripped off for sure. For sure, because that's happened to my kids before, where they've gotten some game and they come home and it's like, oh, I got to put the code in, and then now I own the game. I'm like, no, you don't.
Well, we've had plenty of video game online stores that have just completely closed down. It was at least with video games, it was like, yeah, you could download it to your console and you could have it that way. But once the store was gone, completely shut down, if you didn't have it downloaded on your system, that's it. It's gone. You don't have it anymore. So, yeah, in terms of archiving, in terms of keeping things in a collection, seems very unreliable. But yeah, Sony's just been, this is the second time in as many months that this has come up. They about-faced when it came to the Discovery content on the PlayStation Store. That has been extended for whatever length of time it was, another 18 months or whatever it was there. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see if there's enough of an outcry from their Funimation audience that they do another about face to keep it around longer than the announcement goes. What a weird way.
There may not be as many anime fans, but those anime fans are very tech savvy.
Yes.
And are much more likely to dox you than anything else out there. So I would think that this is going to do a very quick about face when somebody shows up at somebody's house.
I will not be shocked if there is another announcement coming before April 2nd.
Comments here from listeners. Greg, last week we showed Greg's photo of his Sanders electrostatic speakers along with his Martin Logan center speaker sitting on top of his BDI furniture stand. We spotted the VR headset sitting to the left of his center speaker, but we weren't sure what VR headset it was. You're right. It's just a PSVR 2. What threw us off is that it's sitting in the charging cradle that holds the PSVR 2 Sense controllers, and their circular shapes sort of look like some sort of lenses on the front of the headset in the small version of the image that we were looking at. So mystery solved. Okay, whatever. That's great.
That was it. Yeah, I was like, what are those two circular things on the front of that VR
I know.
headset? It's I should have recognized it, but yeah, it's the VR Sense controllers. They have that circular shape, so they're just sitting in a charging cradle in front of the headset that is sitting behind it.
It still looks weird to me.
It's a small image. It was tough to make out, but that's what it is. Hooray! Thank you, mystery solved.
Yeah, it's all kind of moire in that image too. It cracks me up. All right, questions. Let's get to them. Nathan wanted to call into question our advice, Rob, much more than Tom. Dude, you picked on the wrong guy. You should have picked on me. I'm much more likely to back down than Rob is, of saying that if you have 2 rows of seats, you can get away with as little as 5.5 feet from the back of the first row to the back of the second row. Many of the home theater recliners that he's come across require 6 feet in order to fully recline, and even that wouldn't leave any room for people's feet to go slightly in front of the edges of the footrest. So if we're talking about 2 rows of recliners, he's thinking 7 feet from the back of the first row to the back of the second row is probably the real minimum distance required. And even then, if both rows are reclined, there wouldn't be any room for anybody to walk in between the 2 rows without people de-reclining to let them pass. Our thoughts. First of all, de-recline to let people pass is fine. I got no problems with that. I think that's... I
mean, in a regular movie theater still, usually...
You have to do that.
Yeah, if it's got the reclining seats, you usually have to de-recline to let people pass. Or if it doesn't have the reclining seats, there's still the thing, you tuck your legs in, you kind of squish to the back of your seat. That's still a fairly common thing. So I don't think that's out of the question to say that, yeah, okay, you got 2 rows of seats or 3 rows of seats, recliners, but in order for someone to get in and out, if they're in the middle seat, say, the people beside them are going to have to de-recline to let them out. So I think we can make that work. Yeah. But you had more to say?
Is that the end of that?
I thought you had more to say. I thought I was.
I did not.
No. Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I had a couple of thoughts. So, I mean, I think I emphasized reasonably well that like 5.5 is not ideal. It is just a real minimum. Like, because I've seen people with diagrams where they're like, I've got a 19-foot long room and I think I can fit 3 rows of seats.
Jeez, no.
Right. and so my stress has been actually coming from the other side because they have like 4 feet from the back of one row to the back of the next row. And I'm like, you need a minimum of 5.5, like just to physically fit the seats, you need 5.5 feet from the back of one row to the back of another if we're talking about recliners. So I maybe didn't. I clearly didn't stress that enough to convey that, but that was coming from the side of I have definitely seen people intending to put even less than 5.5 feet between their two rows. But then on the defending side of why would I stop at 5.5 feet? Why wouldn't I say at least 6 feet when we've seen the recliners in their own diagram saying, hey, if you fully recline this seat, it's 6 feet from tip to tip, and obviously you couldn't have less than that and even physically fit it. Why would I say 5.5 feet? Well, for a couple of reasons. To start with, not everybody puts recliners in both rows, right? So if you just have a regular couch as your back row, and
which is pretty common actually.
It's not that uncommon. Yeah, you have regular non-reclining seats in your back row and then maybe some theater recliners as your front row. 5.5 feet, again, I'm not saying it's ideal. I'm not saying it's particularly comfortable, but it is just enough space that you aren't going to have literal this doesn't fit problems if you went for 5.5 feet. 6 feet from a couch, the back of a couch to the back of some recliners, is reasonably comfortable. You might have to get the front row to de-recline to walk in and out between that back row. That is still going to be an issue even at 6 feet there. But you can make it reasonably work with a fairly high degree of confidence. Then the other side of it is even if you have 2 rows of recliners, 5.5 feet can work as long as both rows don't fully recline. And I'm thinking during most movie watching experiences, yeah, you have the part where the footrest comes up, but you don't necessarily have it lay all the way as flat as it can possibly go.
I'll be honest
that would
with you,
be a
I
weird
almost
experience.
never have it lit. My kids do. My kids lay them all the way back, but I do not.
Okay.
I'm mostly, like, I want to be a little bit, I'm going to use this word hesitantly, erect when I am watching a movie.
Well, yeah, I mean,
because I don't want to be
on
laying completely back because I'm kind of looking down my nose at the movie.
Yeah, so I mean, it does depend a bit on the placement of your screen, how high up you've mounted your screen and that sort of thing. But I mean, I certainly, in any of the setups that I have, I don't fully recline my seat. I have the footrest come up. I might recline a little bit, but I'm, mostly sitting up with just the footrest raised. So if you do that, if you had 2 rows doing that, like again, 5.5 feet, not ideal, but you could probably physically fit. You would definitely have to de-recline to walk in and out in between the rows, but 5.5 feet is like just enough. And I was coming, like I said, from the other perspective of if you thought 4 feet was going to do it, no, 5.5 is the absolute minimum. So I think we're actually all much more in agreement that, 6 feet or 7 feet would be more comfortable. Unquestionably, I agree with you there. I do have a little bit of a hesitancy, though, to say my default would be to recommend that everybody have 7 or 8 feet from the back of one row to the back of another, because now you get into the situation where that back row is starting to get a pretty small field of view. Right? Their viewing angle to the sides of the screen is starting to get pretty small in that back row. If you've got 8 feet, let's say, between the rows, unless you have a very large home theater with a greater than 150-inch screen, and even then, you're kind of getting a little bit ripped off in that back row because your field of view to that screen size is just getting much, much smaller. So I like to keep it at like 6 feet. To me is very workable, right? I agree. You'll probably have to de-recline if people are walking in between the rows, but 6 feet is pretty darn comfortable in most situations, and then 5.5 is an absolute bare minimum. Do not go closer together than 5.5 feet. So I hope that clears it up.
All right. Jay, like many other people, Jay likes to listen to music while he's working out. He had been using wired headphones, but once in a while... Oh, speaking of headphones, we have to talk about those headphones that I reviewed.
Oh, the battery life headphones from last week. Yes. The
we have to talk about those. We'll do that at the end of this. But once in a while, the cord will get in the way or get caught on a weight or a piece of equipment, so he decided he wanted to go wireless. Fair enough. Nothing's worse than catching your cord on something and having it ripped unceremoniously out of your ear. It's not fun.
No.
But but since he's taking these to the gym, he really did not want to spend a lot of money on them. He found the JLab Go Air Sport Bluetooth. JLab Go Air Sport Bluetooth. I swear, they cannot come up with a good name for headphones anymore. They've given up.
I mean, JLab is the brand. JLab Go for completely wireless. That kind of makes sense. And then Air Sport. There you go. Whatever.
They just throw these names on there.
Yes.
They cost $20. So he decided to give them a shot. Unfortunately, it seems as though you get what you pay for. The fit was okay and the sound quality was okay, which is all you really need for the gym anyways.
Yep.
But the Bluetooth connection just doesn't stay connected. It was so bad that...
it should be bad. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Typo. That simply turning his head to the side could make them lose connection even when they were fully charged. Terrible.
Right.
But this phone is a little bit off the beaten path. It is from Blue Products, one of their 5G Android phone models. The 5G. That's how they control your mind.
I wouldn't be
That's how they
blaming the
convince
5G.
you that the ice wall holding in the water on our flat Earth isn't there.
Fantastic.
Why else would they not? I still can't figure out what's the end game of people trying to convince people of a spherical Earth. What's their big goal? Like, what do they get out of it?
It sure helps when you want satellite communication to work. Much easier with
No,
a
but I don't
sphere.
understand what the flat Earthers think that the round Earthers are getting out of it.
Right.
I don't understand what the the whole thing, the blank money. They make money. It's like this step one,
blank,
step
blank,
two,
blank, profit,
and then profit. What's the blank?
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, so this phone's a little off the beaten path. It's a Blue Products, one of their BLU, by the way, BLU
products. Yes.
One of their 5G Android phone models. It's inexpensive, so it occurred to him that maybe the Bluetooth problem was actually on his phone's end rather than the JL Labs Go earphones end. But he tried pairing the earphones with a dedicated music player from SanDisk, and the results were still as bad. So is this experience normal? If he gets some better, slightly more expensive earphones, could he expect the Bluetooth connection to still drop out at random sometimes? Are all inexpensive Bluetooth earphones just as bad as these JLab Go Air Sports? Or is there something in the $50 to $75 range that would be a big improvement? They still need to physically stay in his ears without easily coming loose. And while he isn't looking for the final word in a fidelity or anything, it would be nice if they were pleasant to listen to as well. Any suggestions? Just about every single... Okay, first of all, there's a lot of videos out there that talk about antennas and how they work. So, what you want to look up is fractals, because that's what they use. That's how they design these antennas that are very, very small that go in our devices these days, including our phones, that both transmit and receive. Okay, so fractals. I don't understand the full science behind it. I've watched the videos before. It's very, very interesting. You can look them up. I'm sure they're out there someplace. Can you find $50 to $75 range of headphones that would be a big improvement? The answer is, I literally think that you can get almost, like we talk about, like bookshelf speakers in the $500 to $1,000 range being like anything above that, you're spending a lot of money on a little bit of improvement. That's the way I feel about Bluetooth headphones these days. $50 to $100 is like, it is... You can get a lot more you can get more performance, but you're going to spend a lot more money, and its point of diminishing returns comes up pretty quickly there.
But then those ones versus $20 Bluetooth earphones.
So the problem I think you're experiencing is that you have an antenna inside those Bluetooth headphones that is bad, and because of how small the antennas are, it's the tolerance have to be very, very tight, and you just got a bad one. Could you buy another $20 pair of these headphones and the antenna be better? I almost guarantee that would be the case. I don't think these are universally bad. I think you got a bum set.
Well, but I mean, even if you literally got another set of JLab Go Air Sports, because they're like one of the top recommendations over at the Wirecutter, and it's Lauren Dragon, who is a fantastic reviewer. She's listened to and reviewed more Bluetooth headphones than anybody on the planet, I think. And she's excellent, and I usually trust what she has to recommend. I mean, she is talking about them as the absolute bottom priced budget pick, but they are, for that category, the one that she's recommended. Maybe that's exactly where you heard about them and went to get them. So it would be weird to me if they were just universally this bad, if the set, at least that she had tested, were this bad, that they would get that recommendation. So I'm thinking this could be a unit-to-unit variation. But then when you are talking about $20 Bluetooth earphones, the idea that they're going to have some kind of massive amount of quality control going along with those in unit-to-unit, it's not particularly shocking that you might have got a lemon set of them. So I'm not even going to necessarily blame that particular model, but I'm not going to say that on the one side, there's some kind of Bluetooth earphone you can buy in the $50 to $75 range that will never, under any circumstance, ever have a Bluetooth dropout. I mean, there's just no way to promise that. Bluetooth is not a 100% reliable wireless technology. It is possible to have a Bluetooth dropout with just about anything that you might buy. But on the flip side, the notion that this is just the way Bluetooth earphones are at, under $100, that they all drop out this badly and this frequently as the particular set that you got. No, that is not the case. There are definitely Bluetooth connections that are more reliable than that, for sure. So, yeah, are there particular ones that you have to recommend, Tom?
Yeah, I have done a ton of earphone and headphone reviews over at AV Gadgets. Almost... you can read my reviews and you will find out how I feel about that. I do not sugarcoat stuff. I will tell you what's good about them. I will tell you what's bad about them. So the two I'm going to suggest to you are the Earfun Free Pro 3. I'm sorry, the names are so stupid.
Yes, Earfun Free Pro 3. Yes, there it is.
They are a wireless headphone. Okay, they're in your in-ear, and they have the little
kind of wing thing
that help keep them in your ear.
Presses against the inner part of the pinna of your ear, yeah.
I think the MSRP is $80. Okay. You usually can find a coupon or a sale. I think in the article I do have a coupon on there for 25% off, so that's like $60. Okay. But I don't know if it still works. I know it did at the time. The other one is one I just did recently, which is the Soundpeats Go Free 2. And these are the open ear ones that just kind of sit in front of your ears.
Okay.
I use these because they kind of have a hook that goes around the back of your ear. I use these to be pretty active. I was not running with them, so I don't know what kind of stuff you're doing. But I was like doing yard work and stuff like that, and I found them to be a lot more secure than I thought they were going to be. But these are not in your ear. These are like in front of your ear types.
So if you wanted to block out sound while you're at the gym, they're not going to be the best choice for that. On the flip side, if you were like, I actually didn't like that the JLabs I was using blocked passively, like earplugs, blocked my ears, and I wanted to be able to hear more of my surroundings, then that could be a very good choice. So that's going to sort itself out pretty quickly depending on what you wanted in terms of ear plugginess.
Yeah, the earphone ones I think have the ANC and all the rest of that crap, so you should be fine with that.
So there should be a pass-through mode. I had one that I'm Tom probably just avoided mentioning them because it's one that I know he's reviewed as well, which is Soundcore, which is Anker's headphone sub-brand. But Soundcore's Space A40s. Now, these don't particularly have a physical keep it in your ear or hooked around your ear type of thing. These are just pretty standard completely wireless earbuds that just fit in your ear with the silicone or foam ear tips. So that's all that's keeping those in there. But yeah, those are on sale for $60 right now for a pair of those over at Amazon. So it's within this price class. Pretty good battery life on them. It's about 10 hours of battery life just on a single charge. And then, of course, it comes with the case that you can put them in to recharge them, and you can do so 4 times. So overall, I think the sound quality on them for the price, the quality of the noise cancellation that they provide, they'd have a pass-through mode if you want to just quickly be able to hear somebody outside you and then go back to using them like noise-canceling earplugs. Overall, the quality on those Soundcores is pretty good. The Bluetooth connection seems to be pretty solid on those. Yeah. So,
and I found that to be the case on all of the headphones that
the ones that we mentioned
review.
There.
Yeah. I usually can leave my phone in the house and go outside through cinder block.
Yeah.
And it will cut in and out from time to time, but I don't know where your phone is in relation to you. You made it sound like just turning your head would be enough. And I have had headphones where I put the phone in my back pocket and sometimes it cuts out. So none of the headphones I've reviewed recently have had that problem.
Okay.
The Space A40s are a great option. I use those all the time.
And I think you mentioned about their fit as far as staying in, even though they don't have a wing or a clip around your ear, that they're pretty good that way, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah. And I have no problems recommending those as well, but I saw that you were already going to recommend them, so whatever.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I'm good with that is because it gives you 3 different form factors to choose from, because everybody's ears are very much personal, and what fits comfortably for you is not necessarily going to be exactly what somebody else thinks. So having an option that's just the bare earbud style, and it's just fitting in there with the silicone or the foam tips, that's the Soundcore Space A40s, and then having the ones that do have the winged ear tip, if that's the the style that you prefer, and having those as the earfun free Pro 3s, or then having ones that do hook around your ears and don't completely block your ears so that you can hear what's outside you, as the Soundpeats Go Free 2. What fantastic names, but those should be 3 options of different styles, all within the price range that you were talking about, where the Bluetooth connection in our experience has not been an issue. Certainly not is just dropping out constantly. And yeah, we've both come across that with certain ones before, so we know what you're talking about. So yeah, if you happen to get a set of any of the ones that we recommended, and you're having Bluetooth dropout problems, we would kind of suspect there's something on the source end at that point going on there.
Yeah. But you tried it with 2 different sources, so I think it's the headphones in your case.
Yeah.
Daniel, Screen Innovations has started promoting their new carbon black ambient light rejecting black screen material. They partnered up with a Dutch company that's actually named Carbon Black Technology, except now that there's a space between carbon and black. And the other
that's
one
right.
Not a space between carbon and black, in order to use their nanotechnology-based screen material that claims to preserve 95% contrast and black levels under any lighting conditions while working with any type of throw distance projector, long throw, short throw, and ultra short throw, and having a wide viewing cone of 160 degrees both vertically and horizontally. The material is manufactured in rolls that are 16 feet wide and 99 feet long. It can be stitched together to create truly enormous screen sizes. It can be rolled or folded for transport, and there's an acoustically transparent option as well. Prior to the partnership with Screen Innovations, Carbon Black Technology demonstrated their screen material back in 2021 at Infocom, which is still a conference that I know exists, but at the same time don't care about. They explained that their nanocarbon material does not reflect light in the traditional sense. Instead, it resonates when hit with visible light, converting most of the energy into heat, but at specific wavelengths, the light energy is radiated back out as visible light again. So it's a very different method of rejecting unwanted ambient light. Boy, that sounds like BS. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm not saying that it can't work, but I read it. I'm thinking about it. And I don't understand how it knows what light to reflect and what light not to reflect. Like, that doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
Like, again, we're getting into nanotechnology here, similar to like quantum dots, right? Where quantum dots, you have they're stimulated by energy, right? The shorter the wavelength, it stimulates a quantum dot to reproduce, or basically that shorter wavelength goes in and a longer wavelength comes back out in the case of a quantum dot, which is why it's very difficult to make blue quantum dots, because then you have to activate them with something that's a shorter wavelength than blue light, which would be getting into ultraviolet or X-rays or something like that. So in the case of a nanocarbon screen-based material, the idea is that, okay, visible light is hitting this nanocarbon structure. It is vibrating. it converts that light into heat, into kinetic energy, just into heat. But at specific wavelengths, the light comes back out as the same visible light that went in. So yeah, I mean, nanostructures are weird things, but I mean, with quantum
I just don't understand how it knows which light is to be rejected and which light is to be reflected.
Well, just imagine that at a specific wavelength, like that's a frequency of light, right?
Yeah,
if you saw the light as a wave in a sine wave form, then that's a specific frequency of light. We know things resonate, and they only resonate at given frequencies. So it's at the particular resonant frequency of that wavelength and that frequency of light that it happens to resonate just at the right rate to send that light back out as light, and at all other frequencies it just vibrates, and that just becomes heat and not visible light anymore. So I can see how this potentially is a thing that works.
I need it to be explained better than that, because it doesn't. But anyways, let me finish reading here, because maybe that'll explain it to me. Since it only re-radiated specific wavelengths of visible light, carbon black screen material is only effective when using a laser projector. An image will still appear if you use a lamp-based projector, but it will be at least 30% darker than a laser-based projector with the same lumen output rating, and contrast will not be preserved to the same degree. Pricing from Screen Innovations is not readily available, but Carbon Black Technology sells the raw screen material for professional purposes with a 10-foot wide 16 by 9 roll costing about $2,000. So Daniel was super intrigued by this, and he was wondering why for a long time we projection screens aren't black. We have, of course, used white screens, and we've seen plenty of gray screens, some of them very, very, very dark gray. And we have all the various kinds of ambient light rejecting screen, but Daniel has seen a projector casting his image onto a wall that was simply painted glossy black and did a surprisingly good job of still recreating white images and vibrantly colored images while retaining nice deep black. So why do black projection screens need to be complicated or expensive? He'd like to hear our thoughts and any insights we may have about why black projection screens aren't a more common thing. Well, because black absorbs light. That's why. That's the whole point.
Well, if it were matte black, if you just had a matte black screen, that would be very difficult to project anything onto.
Yeah, I understand that the glossy black would still reflect enough light to give you the colors and even a white-ish looking image that you'd want. Now,
similar to how, just because of the way our brains work, right? If you show a bright image on a white screen with some ambient light, and we know for a fact that black under those circumstances is not black, but when you're just looking at a high contrast image that's been projected in that situation, your brain will still interpret the black as you'll still think of it as being black just because of the contrast between it and the bright white thing right next to it in the image, right? If you were to remove that bright white part, you'd go, oh yeah, that's gray, not black at all. But our brain is pretty good at interpreting things. So similarly, if you have a black screen or a black surface that you're projecting onto, the white is not truly white. If you removed everything around it, you'd be like, oh no, that's a dingy gray. But when you have the contrast of all the other parts of the image around it, your brain is like, well, I know it's supposed to be white, so I kind of perceive it as being white. So there's a bit of that going on. I mean, there have been the people who have been proponents of painting your wall a particular type of black and projecting onto that. It always results in a color shift. It's just unavoidable that you aren't going to have completely accurate colors. But the main drawback of black screens that we've had before, or black paints used as a screen surface, is that we have had to have a high gain in order for the white to be perceived as white, in order for colors to not look dingy and very grayed out. You have to have a high gain surface, which meant that, in the case of one of my favorite ambient light rejecting screen materials, Seymour AV's Matinee Black, you ended up with a very narrow viewing cone. You could really only watch it from head on if you sat off to the side of it. The very high gain that was reflecting much more light back to the middle of the screen than it was off to the sides meant that you got a very quickly dim image if you sat off to the side whatsoever. It was good at rejecting light that was coming from the sides of your room. If you had a window over to the side of your room, it was good at rejecting that light with you sitting in the middle dead ahead of that screen, but it worked the reciprocal as well. You sit off to the side of that screen and you're going to see a very dimmed down image. And then when you have a high gain surface, you're going to have that flash lighting and that hot spotting where certain parts of the image it's like somebody is shining a flashlight onto that part of the image and it doesn't look diffuse and normal. And that happens with any high gain material, including a white or a gray high gain material. So those have been the typical drawbacks of trying to use a black surface as your projection surface. You're going to have to use a high gain, traditionally a glossy black paint, and that just means that the way light is reflected back is not even, it's not uniform. So depending on where you sit or exactly where the light is coming from, you can end up with these artifacts, these hot spotting, this flash lighting, or just a dim image when you sit to the side. So the whole change here with this carbon black material going to a pretty expensive, I'm sure the Screen Innovations screen at like 10 feet wide is probably in the $8,000 range. That's just a guess, but just going by the types of prices that Screen Innovations tends to charge for their other screens. Like they've had their black diamond screen and their slate screens for ages now. Those have been their ambient light rejecting screens that they've offered. Carbon black is a new one, a new technology from this new Dutch company. But like their former screens, their black diamond was highly rated. It still had the issues. Go listen to Ara Derderian over at the HT guys. He got one of those Screen Innovations black diamond screen. It was recommended to him because he was saying, I'm putting a 110 or whatever it was size screen into a room that doesn't have full light control. And he was like, I kind of am disappointed. Like he was a little bit regretful of having got that because it was those artifacts were visible. The sparkliness to the image was visible. You would get these sparkles some places on the screen. The hot spotting was visible, and he's like, it's just not a flawless image, even on what was at the time probably the best available ambient light rejecting screen for a traditional throw projector. So, I mean, I haven't seen this carbon black in action, but I have a fair amount of trust in the guys over at Projector Central when they do reporting. And when they were talking about this back in 2021 at Infocom, they were like, yeah, it is darn impressive. Like this was convention floor lights. Okay, so this isn't even like regular at home type of light. This is conventional convention lighting in a gigantic show floor. And they're like, yeah, like black looks pretty like more closer to black than anything else that they've seen. And with a laser projector, still a very viewable image. Now they were talking about this on it was a 160 inch or something like that size, like bigger than a lot of us use at home theater, but not like crazy concert venue or something like that. Relatively reasonable size. They were using a 25,000 lumen laser projector on there to do that at the convention. So this still isn't a case where you're going to be shining your 2,000 lumen projector onto this, even if it's laser light engine, and getting a really bright, vibrant image. You still need to send a lot of light at this screen to get a lot of light back. At least that was the demonstration that was described by Projector Central at Infocom. So they were talking about how like one of Adele's concerts recently used this. They used this carbon black material to be a projection surface at one of her concerts recently. So it got a bit of exposure that way. I think some of this makes sense, but I don't see there just being some really inexpensive couple $100. It's just a black material, and magically you can use it with the lights on and make your projector look like an OLED. Like that, it takes more than that.
I mean, I've seen ambient light rejecting screens on the show floors before look very, very impressive. And the reality is, it's because you're on a show floor anyways. I mean, there's only if it looks at all good, it looks impressive, and you're not being super critical, and you're not, you're also not staring at it for a long period of time or putting up any sort of test patterns or anything else. So
that said, I mean, like the Projector Central guys have seen a lot of projectors and screens. So when they say this was particularly impressive in retaining black, like it really did look closer to black than other ambient light rejecting screens. So I put some faith in that, because that's.
I'm not saying that it's not impressive. Okay, so now, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the fact that it can know which light it should reject and keep as heat, and which light it can't.
Just imagine a nanocarbon surface that when it's hit by visible light, it doesn't like just act as a reflector. It just vibrates. It physically vibrates in response to that energy, right? So, I mean, that's the basic of it, right? So it's just saying that at basically almost all wavelengths of light, it looks black to our eyes because it's a dark surface, and when that light hits it, it physically vibrates, and so it just becomes heat. That's all it's turning there.
I get that.
But at a couple select, or three at least, some kind of red, green, and blue select specific frequencies, it resonates, and it's still physically vibrating, but it's doing so, I guess, rapidly enough or with enough energy that photons come back out of it. That's the explanation.
I get the explanation.
Yeah.
I just don't see how the light that's coming from the projector from any direction, because remember, they're talking about ultra short throw, which is going to be coming from either right on top or right below.
Angle,
with a very steep angle, versus long throw, which is going to be coming almost directly straight on. How it knows specifically. So to me, it sounds like more of an intensity thing, like how bright how much energy is
wavelength. It's the exact frequency of the light. Only certain ones make it resonate and re-emit photons instead of just physical vibration.
I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying I don't get it.
It's
Tyler.
It's similar to a quantum dot. That's my thought on it.
Tyler decided he'd like to make a couple of printed acoustic panels just to have a nice change from all his other plain black panels. He had heard the recommendation to get printed acoustic panels, acoustically transparent fabric from SpoonFlower. And when he was looking at their offerings, he actually came across a stock pattern that they offer that he really liked. So there's definitely no concern about wanting to print a copyrighted image or anything like that. The issue is that they seem to have updated the names for their fabrics, and all of the old recommended fabric names appear to have been discontinued. So can we point him to the best fabric option that's currently available from SpoonFlower? He's willing to spend the $20 to get their sample pack if necessary, but if we could just point him in the best fabric for covering panels, so much the better. What do we say? Rob, answer the question because I have to pee.
Okie doke. Off Tom goes for a little bit. But yeah, there is one that we have mentioned before. I agree with you. There used to be like Performance Knit. There used to be one of their cotton options, and those have all been discontinued. But there is one that we mentioned a while back called Performance Pique. Pique with a accent over the E, so I believe that's pronounced as Performance Pique. That is one we've mentioned before. It is still around, and they actually say right there in the description that they recommend it for fabric posters. So that makes it fairly clear. But yeah, that is one that is definitely, it's basically the updated name for what used to be Performance Knit. So this is a 100% polyester fabric. It is machine washable, so even with it printed, so fairly easy care as far as that goes. $29 per linear yard is the price that they charge, and they say right there that the printable width on there is 56 inches. The physical bolt itself of material is 60 inches wide. So I mention that just because if you are making panels that are 48 inches, exactly 4 feet tall, like the frame, the outer dimension of your frame is exactly 4 feet tall, 48 inches. Then you should have like just enough, material to actually wrap that around on the sides. So like the printed part of the image, right? 56 inches is what you can print. So that's, really only 4 inches, right, on either side of the bottom and top edge of your 48-inch panel. But then the actual bolted material is 60 inches wide. So it might be just enough to wrap around onto the back. So if you're using like standard 1x4 material, right, that's 3.5 inches in depth. It should be just enough that you can actually use the width of this material to cover that 4-foot height. But if you're going with much deeper panels, just keep in mind that, yeah, the total width of this fabric is 60 inches and the printable area is 56. So just keep that in mind depending on exactly what sort of size of panels you're creating and the depth that those panels are going to be. It does stretch a bit in both directions. So you do need to be aware of that and a bit careful of that. If you're printing out this image at exactly the size that you want it to be, just be aware that when you're applying that to the frame, there is some stretch in this material, both vertically and horizontally. So be prepared for the image to potentially warp a little bit as you're applying some stretch to this as you wrap it around your DIY frames. So those are the things to be aware of. But yeah, $29 per linear yard, Performance Pique, and that's the one to go with.
What he said. Ryan. Last week, Ryan asked about ceiling-mounted absorption panels and if it was inherently necessary for them to have an air gap behind them, since he's only ever seen images of ceiling panels with them hanging from the ceiling via hooks or cables or chains or some such. Mm-hmm. He was thinking he would just secure some L brackets onto a ceiling using simple wall anchors if necessary, then screw the L brackets into the sides of the absorption panel frame. Super simple, virtually no gap behind the frames of the panels. And since the ceiling height is below 8 feet, it would let him mount 3-inch thick panels without the panels hanging down too low. But it got to wondering, do we have an even easier or better method for securing the panels to his ceilings? What's our recommendations to him? I like your solution. The L brackets, I think, is a perfectly fine solution to this problem.
Simple, easy to comprehend. Naturally, if you're having the L brackets on the outside, because it would be pretty hard to have the edges of the L brackets on the inside of your frame and then still secure them. You'd be kind of screwing in blind from the side of your frame a little bit if you were doing it from the outside. So as long as you're fine with having a little bit of that L bracket visible on the outsides, that's a very easy securement method. Being DIY, you could also just leave some of that fabric not fully attached, right, where those L brackets are going to be, and then just kind of slip it inside, or create a little pocket, create a tiny little pocket on the edges in your fabric there. If you have fabric that's a little bit stretchy, that's pretty darn easy to do, and then you can just slide them in there. So I like that securement method. I like that idea. That's obviously dead simple, inexpensive hardware you can get at any hardware store. Very easy to line up and make all of that work. So I think that's good. I
yeah, you really only need two, right? No matter where they are on the panel, because panels are so light. As long as they're you wouldn't even need wall anchors, I would think.
Maybe.
Just go straight.
For ceiling, I would probably want to do some wall anchors anyway for the part that's actually screwing into the ceiling itself.
I would just go straight into the joist, wherever a joist,
that would be ideal.
Even if it's off center to the rest of the panel, because it's not going to take that much, and once you get that L bracket in there, you're kind of good to go.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Putting it into the joist is definitely the best, but yeah, if it has to be mid-span for whatever reason, then I'm okay with or the toggle bolts, right? The one you put the little drill hole in there, and the little butterfly toggle goes up there and then secures back down. That would be very secure against the ceiling.
So he's in the process of upgrading his whole house audio solution. He was just using an Amazon Echo in every room, but he'd really like to have better audio quality. Naturally, he instantly considers Sonos, but then he came across WiiM. That's what I'm going to call it.
They want us to say WiiM. It's the WII capital M company that we've talked about before.
WiiM.
WiiM. I look at that and see WiiM, because of course Nintendo Wii with the WII. They love the idea that you can, turn their logo over and it still says WiiM, because it's a capital M and a capital W on either end, so you can flip it over. But they want us to say WiiM. That's how they say it.
They don't have speakers or sound bars like Sonos does, but they have a WiiM app, a Whiny app that offers a very similar functionality to the Sonos app, but at a much lower price.
Amp. This is the amplifier.
Amp. Did I say amp? Whatever.
App is what I heard. They have an app as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah,
so with the WiiM amp in every room, he could connect any pair of regular speakers that he likes. The amp provides 60 watts into 8 ohms or 120 watts into 4 ohms, 2 channels, and it has a subwoofer pre-out with an adjustable crossover, as well as a HDMI ARC input and a regular RCA stereo line level input. The app, just not the amp.
App now. The app on your smartphone or tablet.
Looks like it's simple to use, and while they don't yet support Apple Music, they do support all the streaming music services that Ryan currently uses and cares about. Sonos does offer the convenience of having many different form factors and standalone smart speakers and sound bars, as well as their Sonos subs. He'd like to have several 2-channel setups in various rooms of the house, but also a couple of TV solutions. So, is this all set up?
That was all preamble, yes.
Okay, because it's now B and then B again. He already knows... Okay, first of all, before we go on, yes. If you're used to using Amazon Echoes in your different rooms, you can have them each one connect to its own Bluetooth speaker and just continue to use what you're using and not have to do anything else. That is literally the end of this. Basically, go buy you buy the right number of Bluetooth speakers, because that's what I've done with the ones I care about with the audio quality. Is I've taken the Echo and I've connected it to a Bluetooth speaker. Yes, if the power goes out, you might have to reconnect it, but most of the time, if you're depending on the Bluetooth speaker, because I've got a stupid higher end Bluetooth speaker that's of course finicky, because of course it is. But most Bluetooth speakers, and I've reviewed a ton of them, it will just reconnect immediately the minute you turn it back on. And then it'll remember its volume settings, it'll remember everything else, and you'll be good to go. So if you're looking
there are some Bluetooth speakers that have their own subwoofer output. If you want to add a subwoofer to them, they just have a regular sub pre-out on them. That's model to model specific, but there are Bluetooth speakers that have that. Okay.
So if you're wanting to do the simplest solution, that is the simplest solution. Okay. Now you're talking about going a little bit more than that, but I guess I'm now addressing people who have a bunch of Echoes, don't really like the sound quality. Fair enough, it sucks. Yeah. And want to get better audio quality, but don't want to go through all the rigmarole that you're about to go through. Bluetooth speakers for each individual Echo is the solution to me.
Okay. Now, as far as using that as a whole house audio solution, where at times you want to combine some of them so that a couple of rooms are playing the same thing simultaneously, or all speakers throughout the house are doing it simultaneously.
Echoes can do that.
Echoes can do that. I wouldn't call their app or their voice commands as seamless and easy to use as Sonos.
Sure.
Sonos is really, like, that's sort of the one advantage that they still really have, is that their app is very slick in terms of, I want this room and this room to be playing together. I want these other 2 or 3 rooms to be playing together. Like, whatever it is you want to do, they are quite slick in terms of your control options.
The Amazon
there.
app kind of sucks, I'll be honest with you.
It's
like, so hard to get
there's
anything
ways
done in there.
to do it, but it's not as slick and easy to use as Sonos. So I'm not going to say there's no justification at all for going to a different system. That could be the justification there. If you're trying to have a system that's easier for everyone else in the house to use, not just you, then I could see justifying Sonos on those grounds, not strictly on the sound quality grounds. But then, we've got these WiiM products, however we're going to pronounce it. Like, their standalone amp is pretty simple to wrap your head around, and then they've got their app that does look, I mean, I haven't used it in person, so I can't vouch for it entirely, but it does have a pretty darn slick, very simplified user interface that I can't imagine would be too difficult to use. They make it very easy to combine different rooms. So if you have like the other products that WiiM is selling are like their WiiM Mini or their WiiM Pro, which are the same functionality as the amp, except that they don't have an amplifier built in. You connect them with an optical connection or an auxiliary or a line-out connection to self-powered speakers. And if you have some self-powered speakers, then that would be the option there. You're not paying extra money for the amplification that's built into the WiiM amp. But all of them have that same functionality, and whichever ones you want to pair together and have play together, that is a very simple interface that they have in that app to let you do that. And it is nice that aside from Apple Music, most of the other streaming music services are right there in the app. There's no having to go out to separate apps and then tell it to play through the WiiM system. You can do it all from the WiiM app other than Apple Music. So I can see the justification for going either way, and then I think we can get more into the specifics of what he's asking.
So he already knows that he likes Kef's Q-series speakers, and thanks to places like Accessories for Less, he could get a few pairs of Kef Q150 bookshelf speakers for $300 at $350 a pair. If he powers those with the WiiM amp, he's looking at $600 to $650 with the option to add a subwoofer he wants to. A pair of Sonos Era 300. I guess those are speakers. Yeah,
the Era 300. Those are their larger Atmos capable standalone speakers.
Atmos capable. Shut up. Around $850. And a pair of the older but larger Sonos 5s is over $1,000. And the Sonos Subs is $800 or $430 for the Sonos Sub Mini.
Which I do not recommend. That Sub Mini is pathetic.
Yeah. So a WiiM amp in every room plus a pair of Kef bookshelf speakers wins on price. Some wires have to be run, so Sonos slightly wins on convenience and placement flexibility, which though we say wins on sound quality. Either option would be an upgrade to his Amazon Echo speakers, right? Yes, the speakers that are in the Echo suck. I mean, they're nothing. They're a little tweeter.
I mean, the Echo Studio isn't the worst speaker ever, but still, it's not really worth the price. So I would say either is an upgrade. In my opinion, the Kef bookshelf speakers are definitely an upgrade over the Sonos speakers.
Yeah.
Quite easily.
Well, it depends on what room you put them into, and I mean, there's not that much power in those amps. So if you're like,
and WiiM is a little bit
optimistic.
Like
their amp ratings.
Like 60 watts into 8 ohms. That's 60 watts combined. It's really 30 watts per channel. That's what's going on there. They're mentioning 60 watts, but it's not 60 watts per channel. It's 60 watts in total. So it's not a ton of power. But even so, it's not as though the Sonos speakers have piles and piles of power. Right. Like I'm not that over the moon about Sonos sound quality. To me, it's like, it's fine. It's decent. I'm not that crazy about it. I don't think they're really that great as speakers.
Well,
I love their interface.
They're meant to be convenient and part of the ecosystem that you're already bought into, and they don't. And for most people, they're comparing it to nothing. Or to
or to the super crappy SpeakerCraft speakers that were built into the ceiling when they moved in, those types of things. So yeah, I like they're fine. I'm never angry listening to Sonos speakers. I'm never like, oh, this is awful. It's not like where sometimes with echoes I'm like, this is pretty bad.
Right.
So the Sonos speakers are definitely an upgrade over that. But yeah, if you had a pair of KEF Q150s playing, I'm like, yeah, those sound better than the Sonos speakers.
I would think so.
Yeah,
I would think so. So he asked, what would give him better bass? Adding a Sonos subs to a Sonos Era 100 or Era 300 pair, or adding a RSL Speedwoofer 10S to the WiiM amp, driving a pair of KEF or Q acoustic speakers. The RSL, I think.
The RSL Speedwoofer 10S is it's so much better and such a better deal.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy. Yeah, that's
so
easy.
For his couple of TV solutions with a 2.0 or 2.1 setup using the WiiM amp with its HDMI ARC input sound better than using the Sonos ARC soundbar. Generally speaking, I push people towards a 2.0 or 2.1 over a soundbar. I just think if the form factor is not as limiting as as it can be. So in some rooms, there's just like, if I'm going to get left and right speakers, they're going to have to be so small and so thin and so I mean, there's going to be so many limitations on them that the sound bar is actually going to be the better option.
Right.
If you have the ability to place these a little bit wider than than just right, flanking the TV, and eventually get a subwoofer to go with it, I think overall your experience is going to be better.
Like sound quality, I'd have to give the edge to the 2.0 or the 2.1 setup. But of course, like with the Sonos ARC soundbar, you have the option of adding a pair of wireless surround speakers, including if you added the Era 300s. Yeah. Now you have pseudo 4 overhead speaker Atmos channels, because the ARC soundbar has Atmos, not physically up firing and obviously not physically speakers above you, but that virtualization. So they have virtualized front heights. If you had a pair of Sonos Era 300s in the back, those are virtualized top rears. And then you can add actually a pair of Sonos subs to that. They let you add a pair, not just one. So like if you were going to a full physical speakers behind you, and a full like 5.2.4 Atmos recreation, then it's pretty difficult to argue that if that's what you really want, that just getting the WiiM amp that stops at 2.1, there is absolutely no surround sound or Atmos to it. Like that's the limitation. But if you're just like, the only thing I was ever possibly going to put under this TV was like a single sound bar. Yeah. And the only reason I'm considering the Sonos soundbar is if my entire house is Sonos, and therefore at least I can make that play in unison with everything else. If it's like, that's all I was ever going to do, there's no chance I'm doing physical surround sound. I don't care about trying to recreate Atmos in here, and I'd actually be happier with just like really good 2.1 sound, then I can definitely make the argument for the WiiM with some KEF speakers.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
Lastly, he asks, is there any scenario where it makes sense to mix and match, or is it all Sonos, all WiiM, and he definitely has to make a choice? I mean, the whole idea of going Sonos is that it all works together so seamlessly.
Right.
I don't know why you would mix and match. I guess
price is the reason.
Well, the reason that you could mix and match is if the one that you got the WiiM for is the one that would only ever be played by itself ever. I mean, it would never be part
which defeats
of
the idea of whole house
whole.
audio.
Yeah. So if it's not part of the whole house audio, anything that was, if you were going to go Sonos, then go Sonos for all of the whole house audio stuff.
Yeah.
And then any room that was like, this is only going to play when the TV's on. That's the only reason it's ever going to play. It's never going to, and I don't even care if it never plays with the rest of the speakers.
Yeah.
If I want the option to like maybe we're having a there's one very specific type of, once a year event where we would want audio in all the systems playing at the same time, then you have to stick with the same system all the way through.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't make too much sense to mix and match in this situation. If this is about a whole house audio system, I would choose one or the other. One advantage for WiiM in your situation is, since you already own a bunch of Amazon Echoes, the WiiM products will actually integrate with Amazon Echoes. They can be part of that system. So you don't even have to throw out your Echoes. If you've got a couple of rooms where you really don't care about the sound quality very much, but you're like, it would still be cool to be able to have some sound in here or use it as an intercom or whatever, like WiiM will integrate with that too. So right. I think the advantage is there, right? So the WiiM products, they're not going to be quite... I mean, the Sonos products, you still have to plug them into power, so it's not like they're literally wireless, but there's no wires going between any of the Sonos components. It's just the power cable. With the WiiM, you're going to have to plug it into power, and you're going to have some cables, right? You're going to have a subwoofer cable if there's a subwoofer attached. You're going to have some speaker wires attached to them, so it's maybe slightly less slick, but you've definitely got the cost savings. I think the speakers that you're planning to connect to them do sound better than Sonos speakers. So if that's what you're going for, is a little bit lower price, a little bit better sound quality, just giving up a little bit of the slickness of the looks and that, I think the WiiM makes sense here, and you can continue using your Amazon Echoes. They all integrate together.
Yeah. Raf is using a Denon X8500H receiver. He got two pairs of KEF Q50A wedge-shaped speakers to use as height speakers. He will be mounting the front height speakers up high on his front wall and labeling them as front heights, but for the other pair of height speakers, he has a couple questions. Mm-hmm. In terms of placement that allow his height speakers to have a clear line of sight to all of his seats, it would actually work better to mount them on his side walls instead of his back walls. It actually worked best in his setup to mount them directly above his surround speakers, which are on his side walls, and just a little bit behind the backs of his seats. So those positions would line up exactly with the surround heights that Aura 3D has always wanted people to use, but he's heard us always say to use front heights and rear heights for Dolby Atmos and DTS:X because of I have an article about that, but we've talked about it because it's how DTS
in particular does the steering of sounds. Yeah,
and that's just whatever. Bottom line, will putting his second pair of height speakers up high on his side walls be a problem for Atmos and DTS:X, or would it be okay to have his front heights and a pair of surround heights in terms of placements? So that's how mine are placed, basically. Mm-hmm. And I have them as front heights and top middles in my receiver because that's what they are. And could I change their names to something else and see if it sounds different? I could. Will I? Probably not. But I don't know that I would worry about the Aura 3D at all. Like, I don't know that would come
it's definitely on his mind. We'll get to that in a moment. But in terms of, can you physically have 4 overhead speakers where 2 of them are high up on your front wall and 2 of them are high up on your side walls just slightly behind you? That is fine. You can absolutely do that in terms of physical placement for your 4 overhead speakers. You can definitely do that when you're listening to Atmos and DTS:X. Exactly what you label them in the settings, it's there. You can play around with it if you have the time to see if you ever notice any difference with some of the settings. There's a whole detail that I'm going to get into with his next question, so I'll save that for there. But physically, because that's the main question he's asking here, physically, can you do that without causing problems? You can absolutely go ahead and do that. You do not have to mount them as top fronts and top rears in your ceiling. You do not have to mount them only high up on your front wall and high up on your back wall as front heights and rear heights. You can mount those overhead speakers elsewhere in the room, including high up on your sidewalls. You're still going to have front to back steering and side to side steering. That's what we're really worried about with the overhead speakers. Can I get the sensation that sounds are above me and moving front to back and side to side? And you absolutely can with what you're proposing. So I say it's A-okay.
He sort of say that even if your overhead speakers are not physically mounted where front heights and rear heights are shown in the diagrams, as long as you have one pair physically somewhere in front of you and the other pair physically somewhere behind you, go ahead and label in the receiver settings as front heights and rear heights, not top front and top rears or any other labels. And we have my article about that.
That's right.
But if his height speakers are physically going to be positioned where all the diagrams show front heights and surround heights What will happen if he actually just labels them that way in the X8500H's settings? And what will happen if he labels them as front heights and rear heights?
Yeah.
He does intend to use the Automatic Up Mixer, which I do not recommend.
But he's read so much about it. The people who swear that it's the best of all up mixers, it's so much better than the Dolby Surround or the DTS Neural X up mixers. It has to be. It's so much more rare.
So if his height speakers are physically placed where Oro wants them anyways, does it actually make sense to label them as front heights and surround heights the way Oro has always wanted? So I have an article called What's the Deal with Oro 3D Upmixing? And the gist of the article is it's FOMO, is what it is. It's all Oro 3D Upmixing is. It's FOMO. And you can experiment with it.
I do want to stress, I have tried it, and I think it sounds fine. I have no beef with somebody using it. It's not like I think it is bad.
Not the bee's knees that these people online
It's not magic. It is absolutely not magic.
So you can experiment with it. The problem with Oro 3D and Dolby, and DTS for that matter, is that they're not super compatible as far as when you label your speakers.
That's where the little bit of new information comes in, and it is somewhat specific because he has the model of receiver that he has. Okay. Which is, actually, I think the X8500H is the oldest receiver model that got this update. An update that came out in March of 2023 that changed what you're able to do in Denon and Marantz receivers as far as labels that are compatible with all three immersive audio formats. Prior to this, really the only proper solution would have been labeling your speakers as front heights and rear heights. If you wanted to do all three immersive audio formats prior to the March 2023 update for really only the newer model receivers, and like I say, the X8500H is the oldest one that got this update. Anything older than that didn't get this update. But prior to that, you really had to label them front heights and rear heights. That was the only labels that were compatible with all three immersive audio formats. But now, since that March 2023 update, and it did come to your X8500H, you can have front heights and surround heights, the ones that are directly above your surround speakers on the sidewalls. You can have those labels, and it will now work with Atmos and DTS-X, and of course, it will work with Oro and its Oromatic Up Mixer. You can do that now, and it's not going to break anything. It's not going to have 2 out of your 4 overhead speakers sitting there silent the way it used to, where surround heights really only worked with Oro in the past. You can go ahead and do that. So again, this is something you can experiment with, but ultimately, whether you now, with your specific model of AV receiver, as long as you have gotten that most recent update, you can go ahead and label them either front heights and surround heights or front heights and rear heights. Honestly, it's not going to sound a lick of difference in any of those cases. The sounds all got steered the same way, regardless of what you're doing. The other thing that update let you do is, in the past, if you had top fronts and top rears and top middles for your Atmos setup, you went with the recommended Atmos configuration, then you couldn't use any of those with Oro 3D.
Right.
That's why in the past you had to label it as front heights and rear heights to make it compatible with all three immersive audio formats. Now, after that March 2023 update on the newer models from Denon and Marantz, you can use any of those top positions, and Oro 3D will work with that. What used to be front height sounds get put into the top fronts. What used to be surround height sounds get put into the top rears. And the voice of God, the top surrounds, gets played in mono out of your 2 top middle speakers like it always should have. They're finally doing that after that March 2023 update. So that's the great news for you. Just make sure you've done that most recent firmware update, and you can label them however you want, and it's all going to work. Hooray.
All right. Mike, how much time do we have left here?
Well, we're just at 2 hours, but this is the very last question, and it's not that long, so we can do it.
Mike has a projector as an Optima UHZ50. It can display HDR10 signals, but not HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision. How much of an improvement would it be if his projector could show HDR10 Plus? He has planned to upgrade his AV receiver soon, and he's seen HDR10 Plus support as a listed feature. Does that mean the AV receiver will do some HDR10 Plus processing before sending the video signal to his projector, or does this just mean the receiver will passing along HDR10 plus signals without touching them. The latter.
The latter, yes. When you see HDR10 plus support on an AV receiver, it just means it'll pass the signal through without touching it. It's not doing any kind of processing whatsoever to that signal. So that part is very cut and dry. In the hypothetical situation, there is some method of adding HDR10 plus to your Optima UHZ50. How much of a difference would that be? I mean, I will say minimal. It's a minimal difference. It's going to be the occasional scene, and honestly, you would probably only be able to tell if you had a side-by-side comparison, where you're seeing one version of doing it just in HDR10 with the built-in static tone mapping that your UHZ50 already does, versus side-by-side with it on, on certain scenes, one that was somehow processing HDR10 plus or Dolby Vision for that matter, where occasionally the HDR10 plus or the Dolby Vision version, it's really only going to be in the highlights. That's the only place you're ever going to see it on a projector in a side-by-side comparison. You're looking at a scene of a bright sky with some white clouds in it, and the HDR10 Plus version of the Dolby Vision version, you see a little bit more detail in those clouds. You see a little bit more fluffiness, a little bit more outlines, a little bit more contrast, whereas the static HDR10 version on your UHC50 just kind of fades out to a uniform white in some of the brightest highlights in a scene like that. It's pretty darn minimal, and outside of a side-by-side comparison, you're never going to know that there was a difference to be had anyway.
All right. So he asks, is there some way of adding HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision or Dolby Vision support to his current Optima projector? And that's going to be one of those video Lumigens or HD Furies or one of those things.
Well, I mean, that's a couple of very different things. So I mean, with a Lumigen or a Mad VR, external video processor, which those are up into the $10,000 range. I don't think you're honestly looking to add that to a UHZ50 just based on price point. But what those ones will do is like their full on own HDR processing.
Yes.
You can have them connected to basically any HDR capable projector, and they will do full frame by frame, their own frame by frame tone mapping. That's what the Lumigen video processor or a Mad VR processor can add to your system. So in a way, they're basically ignoring the dynamic metadata in HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision anyway. They're doing their own frame by frame analysis of any HDR signal and tone mapping that to your projector. So that is one option of getting that dynamic processing for HDR signals, but an expensive one. The alternative, much less expensive, or a couple of order magnitude less expensive, HD Fury's devices, the least expensive one that can do this is the 4K Arcana, which is $250, so definitely less expensive than $10,000. And then any of the models that are more expensive than that, basically the Vertex 2 or the Diva or the 8K Vroom or the 8K Arcana, all of which are more expensive than the 4K Arcana. But all of those models from HD Fury have a system where if you connect a source device that can do source-led Dolby Vision. So this is an Apple TV 4K will do this. Most Ultra HD Blu-ray players, especially the Sonys or the Panasonics that are pretty much the only ones that we recommend these days. If you get a Sony or Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player that can handle Dolby Vision, you can set them to be source-led. So that means that they're basically assuming a static tone map on your display, and they're doing the Dolby Vision processing in the source before it gets sent out to the display. So normally you connect one of those source devices to your Optima UHC50, and it just says, well, there's no Dolby Vision at all here, so we're just going to send you HDR10. We're not going to bother with Dolby Vision whatsoever. But if you put an HD Fury, one of those devices, a 4K Arcana or higher, in between that source device and the projector, it will trick the source into thinking it's connected to a basic Dolby Vision capable display, one that can't process Dolby Vision itself, but can accept a Dolby Vision signal, and you can set that source device to do source-led, or what's what they call low latency Dolby Vision. So that does the trick of, some of that highlight detail, it gets brought back. You can see some difference there in a side-by-side comparison with the Dolby Vision present versus not. I don't know of a solution for HDR10 Plus to do the exact same thing. As far as I know, the HD Furies aren't doing that with HDR10 Plus, but there is that little workaround you can do it to sort of have Dolby Vision showing up on your non-Dolby Vision projector.
There you go. All right, well, that's the last question, so that's going to be the end. If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com.
Yes, indeed.
Thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Raph and Tyler for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 130 patrons over at patreon.com, including Daniel.
Yes, Raph and Tyler, thank you very much for those PayPal donations, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. Big thanks to our 130 patrons over there. Daniel, thank you for being one of them.
So I also want to thank Ash for our episode 900 artwork.
Yeah, episode 900. I'm showing it again on YouTube because I have to one last time. Thank you very much, Ash. I mean, really, truly, thank you, Ash. I know how busy you are, so that was fantastic. Wonderful that you could do that. And we've got our fancy little banner going on in this episode, too. Come over to YouTube and check it out.
That's right. And thank Terry for talking us up to SVS.
Yeah, thank you, Terry. Love that support.
And Aaron for sending some... Oh, and also sending me... Terry also
Terry sent a movie code to Tom this week. That's right.
And Aaron sent a couple of movie codes over to Rob, so thank you, Aaron.
He sure did. It was more than a couple this week because he went to more than one flea market, so thank you very much, Aaron.
All right. And we got some notes of gratitude from Terry, Daniel, Ryan, Raph, and Aaron. Thank you for thanking us.
And I'll say the names one more time. Terry, Daniel, Ryan, Raph, and Aaron, thank you very much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. We certainly appreciate it. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.